Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. We're going to break down exactly what makes a computer tick. We use these things literally every single day, but taking a step back to look at the fundamental building blocks, it's actually a pretty awesome refresher.
Now, before we actually meet the different parts, I want you to keep one really crucial question in the back of your mind. Do you know which part of a computer is called its brain? It's kind of fascinating, right? Mapping human biology straight onto a machine. We'll uncover the exact answer from our source text shortly, so definitely hold on to your guesses.
So, looking at our text, a computer isn't just one giant magic box. It's actually made up of different parts, and each one has a very specific, totally different job. When they all sync up, that's when the magic happens. The main players here are the monitor, the keyboard, the mouse, and the CPU. Think of it like a sports team, where every single player has a distinct role to play.
Actually, before you even jump into the strict definitions, the source drops this really cool wow fact. It points out that LED monitors are super popular right now simply because they require way less space. It just goes to show how hardware is constantly evolving to be more efficient and, actually fit on our desks. All right, let's start breaking these components down, going line by line starting with the monitor. First and foremost, the text categorizes this as an output device. Basically, that means it pushes information out to you, showing you all the work being done. Visually, well, it's described as looking exactly like a television screen. So whether you're typing up a document or browsing, the monitor is basically your window into everything the computer is doing.
And this brings us to a really key vocabulary term from the text, VDU. That stands for Visual Display Unit. So if you ever run into the acronym VDU out in the wild, don't panic. It's just the fancy technical name for that exact same screen showing you your work.
Next up on the roster is the CPU, or Central Processing Unit. And what's really interesting here is the sheer amount of responsibility the textbook assigns to this one little device. As a processing device, it stores huge amounts of data. It handles all of the heavy calculation work, and it basically controls all the computer's activities. It is absolutely the powerhouse of the whole setup. So to answer that opening question we had, the answer is right here. The text explicitly calls the central processing unit the brain of the computer. Makes sense, right? Just like your human brain controls your body, stores your memories, and solves problems, the textbook uses this exact biological analogy to explain how the CPU directs the entire system. Without it, the rest of the parts are literally just sitting there, clueless.
Moving right along, how do we actually talk to this machine? Well, enter the keyboard. Now, unlike the monitor, the textbook categorizes the keyboard as an input device. We use it to push information into the system, entering data like letters, numbers, all that good stuff. It's packed with a bunch of individual buttons which, as you probably know, are officially called keys.
And teaming right up with the keyboard is the mouse. The text defines the mouse as your dedicated pointing device, placing it firmly in that input category as well. When you move it across your desk, an arrow moves right along with it on the VDU. You're mostly going to use it to point at, select, and open your files and folders. And typically it's going to feature 2 or 3 buttons to help you execute those commands with just a simple click.
Finally, we have the printer. This is an output device that perfectly bridges the digital and physical worlds. It takes the work you've made on your screen and spits out a printed copy right on paper. And the source material highlights a very specific term for this. It's called a hard copy. So the stuff on your screen is a soft copy, but once you're actually holding that paper in your hands, boom, you've got a hard copy.
Practice time, the game show quiz. All right, now that we've mapped out all the major components, let's seamlessly shift gears and use the exercises from the back of the book to test what we've just covered.
Let's start things off with a classic multiple-choice question. Try to think back to those visual definitions we discussed. Which part of the computer looks like a television? Is it A, the keyboard, B, the monitor, or C, the printer? Lock in your answer. Okay, if you guessed B, the monitor, you are absolutely correct. Remember, that is our visual display unit that literally shows us everything going on inside the machine. Let's test that exact same piece of knowledge, but from a slightly different angle. True or false? The CPU looks like a television screen. What do you think? Yeah, that is definitely false. As we just covered, it's the monitor that looks like a TV. The CPU, that's our processing device, doing all the heavy lifting as the brain of the whole operation.
Next up, a direct Q&A challenge from the text. Without looking back, can you name the 4 core components we learned about at the very beginning of this explainer? The core team, if you will.
Let's see how you did. The 4 main parts you need to memorize are the monitor, the keyboard, the mouse, and the CPU. If you got all 4 of those, you have absolutely nailed the basics.
Let's keep this momentum going, okay? Try this fill-in-the-blank challenge using what we've learned. The blank shows us the work done on the computer. Which device acts as our visual window? Spot on! The monitor shows us the work. Since it's our visual display unit, its entire job is literally just to show us the results of whatever the brain, the CPU, is calculating.
Now, let's see how all of this builds into a perfect summary. This table brilliantly maps out the Match the Columns exercise from the book. You've got the monitor as your visual display unit, the CPU acting as the brain, the keyboard featuring the keys, the mouse serving as your pointing device, and the printer giving you that hard copy. It's the whole shebang right there.
Take a look at this really creative booster exercise from the text. The task here is to identify the actual computer parts from a few random objects. We've got an umbrella, a CPU, and a monitor. Now, an umbrella is great for keeping you dry for sure, but it's definitely not going to crunch any numbers for you. So only the CPU and the monitor are the actual computer components here. To wrap things up, I want to leave you with this final, really intriguing question from the project section of our source text. So we know the mouse has 2 or 3 buttons, right? But what exactly is the official technical name for that little wheel located right there in the middle? I challenge you to go research that on your own the next time you sit down at a desk. Seriously, go look it up. Thanks so much for exploring the anatomy of a computer with me today.